This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy, we go deep and lightly surface the big ideas. Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling human cooperation.
Okay.
Specifically, what happens in our brains when we team up with someone.
Sounds good.
So, you shared a fascinating Medical Express article summarizing a study from Nature Neuroscience where scientists actually watched people's brains as they cooperated.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
In real time.
Yeah?
That's wild.
Yeah. Most research on this has relied on just looking at behavior.
Right?
Or using brain imaging techniques that aren't quite as precise.
Right.
So this study gives us a whole new level of insight.
So how did they do this? Like, how did they actually watch people's brains?
They had pairs of people play a virtual game.
Okay.
Kind of like
a video game.
Yeah, like a high-tech three-legged race.
Okay.
Where their avatars had to move together to reach a goal.
I gotcha.
But here's the really cool part.
Okay.
They use a technique called intracranial electroencephalography, or iEEG.
iEEG.
Which involves placing electrodes directly on the brain.
Wow, so they're really getting in there.
Yeah, this allowed them to monitor the electrical activity in specific parts of the brain.
So they were focused on...
As this cooperation was happening,
they
focused on the amygdala and the temporoparietal junction, or TPJ.
The TPJ.
Which are areas we know are involved in social interaction and decision-making.
So they're watching these two people play, and their brains are just like firing away.
Right.
What are they seeing?
Well, they found that when people cooperate successfully, their brain activity starts to synchronize. It's almost like their brains are forming a temporary network to tackle the challenge together.
Wow.
And the stronger this synchrony, the better the team performed.
That's crazy. It's like their brains are doing like a synchronized swimming routine or something.
Exactly.
But it wasn't just like a constant state of synchrony.
Oh, you're right.
Right.
There were actually two distinct phases of cooperation that they identified.
Oh, really? What are they?
So the first one is what they call the initiation phase.
Okay.
And this phase is all about establishing a connection with your partner.
Gotcha.
Figuring out how to work together.
Like learning the steps to a dance.
Exactly.
Before you start dancing.
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense?
You need to kind of get on the same page before you can really start moving in sync.
So what's happening in the brain during this initiation phase?
So during this phase, they saw a lot of activity in the TPJ.
Okay.
Which suggests that people were really focused on understanding their partner's intentions.
Makes sense.
Like what they were going to do next.
Right. So to cooperate,
you
need to be able to predict.
You need to be able to kind of predict your partner's actions.
Gotcha. Okay, so once they've kind of got that connection going, what happens next?
Then they move into what they call the maintenance phase.
The maintenance phase.
Yeah. And now the focus shifts to coordinating actions smoothly.
Okay.
To keep that connection going.
And to make progress towards whatever their goal is.
So it's less about figuring each other out.
Right.
And more about just moving together.
Yeah.
Flawlessly, like a well-rehearsed dance team.
Exactly. And here they saw more activity in the amygdala.
The amygdala?
Which is the part of the brain associated with processing emotions.
Okay, now why would that be?
Well, it might mean that maintaining cooperation requires us to be more aware of our partner's emotional state. You know, like if someone's getting frustrated, we might need to adjust our behavior to keep the collaboration running smoothly.
So it's not just about coordinating action. Right. It's also about
maintaining that positive social bond as well.
So much happening under the surface that we don't even realize.
Definitely.
So we've got these two distinct phases.
Right.
And the brain activity is syncing up throughout.
Yeah.
What does all of this tell us about how cooperation actually works?
Well, this study gives us strong evidence that this brain synchrony is a key ingredient in making cooperation successful.
Okay.
It's not enough to just have individual skills. We also need to be able to connect with others at a neural level.
It's like we're literally wired for teamwork. Right. Our brains are designed to work together.
Yeah.
This has to have huge implications beyond just playing a simple game, right?
I think so.
So it makes you wonder, like, why are we wired for teamwork?
Yeah.
Like this.
It's a good question.
Wouldn't it be better from an evolutionary standpoint to just be selfish
Right.
and look out for number one?
Well, that's a question that has puzzled scientists for a long time.
Yeah.
Because if you only think about the immediate benefits,
Mm.
you know, going solo might seem like the best strategy.
Right.
But clearly, cooperation has been incredibly successful
Yeah.
for humans as well as many other species.
So how do we explain that?
Well, there's some fascinating theories out there.
Okay.
One of them is called kin selection.
Kin selection.
Yeah. And it suggests that we're more likely to cooperate with people who share our genes, even if it costs us something.
Okay.
Because by helping our family members,
Right.
we're ultimately helping to pass on our own genes.
Gotcha. Like a genetic investment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But that doesn't explain why we cooperate with people who we aren't related to,
Right.
which we do all the time.
All the time. I mean, think about cooperation that happens in communities, workplaces, even between strangers sometimes.
Right, exactly.
There's got to be something else going on.
Right, so that's where the idea of reciprocal altruism comes in.
Reciprocal altruism. Okay.
Yeah, this theory suggests that cooperation can evolve even between strangers
Okay.
if there's an expectation of future payback.
Like a you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of thing.
Precisely.
Okay.
And over time, if everyone keeps reciprocating, it creates this system of trust and mutual benefit,
Right.
and it becomes more advantageous to cooperate
Yeah.
than to constantly try to outmaneuver each other.
That reminds me of the prisoner's dilemma.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that thought experiment where two people
A classic example.
have to decide whether to cooperate or betray each other.
Exactly. And the best outcome for both is to cooperate.
Right.
But there's always that temptation to betray
Right.
and try to get ahead.
But in real life, and even in experiments, people cooperate way more often than you would expect if we were truly just self-interested.
Right.
It really does suggest that there's something deeper.
Exactly. And this new research on brain synchrony provides even more evidence that cooperation is really deeply rooted in our biology.
Okay.
We have neural mechanisms that literally make it easier
Wow.
for us to work together.
So it seems like cooperation is much more than just a nice idea. It's like woven into the fabric of who we are, both biologically
I love that.
and evolutionarily.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it.
It's almost like we're meant to be part of a team,
Right.
not just like a bunch of lone wolves.
And it makes you think, if cooperation is so fundamental to our nature,
Right.
what does that mean for the future of our species?
Especially in a world where we're facing these global challenges,
Right.
like climate change
Exactly.
and pandemics, where we need unprecedented levels of cooperation to solve them.
It seems like if we can't figure out how to work together effectively, we're in trouble.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought.
Yeah. But I think it also highlights the enormous potential that exists.
Okay.
If we can learn to harness our natural capacity for cooperation.
What could we achieve?
Right.
If we could actually like amplify these neural mechanisms that drive us to collaborate.
That's a thrilling idea.
That is a thrilling idea.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
yeah,
we need to acknowledge that this research is really just the beginning.
Okay.
There's still so much we don't know.
So we need more research.
Exactly.
With larger, more diverse.
Yeah, with larger and more diverse groups of people.
To really understand how this brain synchrony works in different contexts.
Right.
And it's not just about the science either.
That's right.
Right.
We need to think about the ethical considerations as well.
What do you mean?
Well, you know, what if someone figures out how to manipulate this brain synchrony?
Oh.
You know, could it be used to exploit people?
Right.
Or to control their behavior?
Wow. Yeah. Those are some serious questions.
Yeah, those are critical questions that we can't afford to ignore.
It's like a two-sided coin.
Yeah.
Amazing potential benefits, but also potential risks if we're not careful.
Absolutely.
This research has opened up a whole new world of possibilities.
Definitely.
But it seems like the human element, our choices, our values, will ultimately determine how this knowledge is used.
Absolutely. Science can show us what's possible, but it's up to us to decide how to use that knowledge for good.
So this conversation has been full of twists and turns.
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of processing everything. But one thing is for sure, it's pretty amazing to think that something as seemingly simple as brain synchrony could hold the key to unlocking our collective potential as humans.
It really is a humbling reminder that we're interconnected on a much deeper level than we often realize.
And maybe the most powerful force in the universe isn't some cosmic energy or supernatural being,
Mm.
but it's our ability to come together and synchronize our minds
I love that idea.
and work towards a common goal.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if our brains can sync up during a game.
Right.
What's possible when we apply that to real-world problems?
That's a fascinating question.
What could we achieve
Yeah.
if we could learn to consciously enhance this synchrony?
And that brings us to what I think you wanted to explore next.
Okay,
The practical applications of all this.
let's do it.
How can we take these insights about brain synchrony
Yeah.
and use them to improve cooperation in our own lives, in our communities, maybe even on a global scale?
If we're all wired for teamwork, how can we make the most of it?
Let's dive into that.
Okay, so we're wired for teamwork. Our brains literally syncing up when we cooperate.
Right.
How do we make that work for us in the real world? Like, where do we even begin?
I think this research gives us a really powerful starting point.
Okay.
It highlights the importance of that initial connection phase, making sure everyone's on the same page
Right.
before diving into the task.
It's like what we were talking about earlier with that dance metaphor.
Right.
You don't just like grab someone and start waltzing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to kind of get a feel for each other's rhythm first.
Right. You need to like get in sync.
Yeah. And this study suggests it's not just about clear communication and body language. It's really about our brains trying to get on the same wavelength.
So how do we help that process along? Like, is there anything we can do to consciously encourage that neural synchrony?
Well, one key factor the researchers identified is something called shared intentionality.
Shared intentionality.
Yeah, when everyone involved is truly committed to a common goal
Okay.
and understands their role in achieving it,
Uh-huh.
it lays the groundwork for the brains to start syncing up.
So making sure everyone's clear on like the what and the why.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Clear communication, active listening,
Yeah.
a shared sense of purpose are all essential.
It's like setting the stage for a successful performance.
Exactly.
Everyone needs to be in tune with the same score.
Right.
And what about trust? It seems like trust has to play a huge role in effective collaboration.
Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah.
Trust is crucial.
Yeah.
When we trust the people we're working with, we're more open to their ideas,
Right.
more willing to share information freely,
Right.
more comfortable taking risks together.
Makes sense.
It creates an environment where our brains feel safe, syncing up with others.
But building trust, especially when there's like existing tension or conflict,
Yeah,
that can be tough.
it can be really tough.
Any tips on how to cultivate trust?
One approach that can be surprisingly powerful is focusing on finding common ground.
Okay.
Even in situations where people seem completely at odds,
Right.
there are usually some shared values or goals
Okay.
that can be a starting point.
It's like that saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you disagree on like almost everything,
Right.
you can still find common ground in your opposition to like a shared threat or something.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And by focusing on those points of agreement,
Yeah.
you could start to break down barriers and create a space for dialogue.
Right.
It's like building a bridge across a divide,
Yeah.
one small step at a time.
And from there, maybe those brains can start humming on the same frequency
Hopefully.
and find ways to actually work together.
That's the hope. But of course, building trust takes time and effort,
For sure.
especially when there's a history of conflict.
Right.
Patience and persistence are key.
So it's important to remember that cooperation doesn't always mean that everyone agrees on everything right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's about finding ways to respectfully disagree
Uh-huh.
and to compromise.
Okay.
It's about engaging in healthy debate, listening to different perspectives,
Yeah.
searching for solutions that benefit everyone involved.
It's like learning to dance with someone who has a different style than you.
Right.
You might not always move in perfect unison,
Yeah.
but you can still find a rhythm that works for both of you.
Exactly. And sometimes those unexpected variations can lead to something even more beautiful and creative.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's incredible to think that something as simple as working to understand each other and find common ground
Right.
could have such a profound impact on our ability to cooperate.
Yeah, it really is.
It makes you wonder what happens when those efforts fail. Like, what about situations where trust is broken or
Right.
there's just no willingness to compromise?
Yeah.
Is cooperation even possible then?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
There are definitely situations where cooperation becomes extremely difficult, if not impossible.
Right.
But even then, I think understanding these principles of brain synchrony can be valuable.
Okay.
It helps us appreciate the complexities involved.
Right.
And reminds us that cooperation is an ongoing process, not just a switch we can flip on and off.
So it's not like a magic bullet, but it's a framework
Right.
we can use to navigate the messy realities of human interaction.
Exactly. And the more we understand about how our brains are wired for cooperation, the more equipped we are to build strong connections, navigate disagreements, and work together to create a better future.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has been fun.
We started with a single study about brains syncing up during a game.
I know, it's amazing where we ended up.
And we've ended up exploring the very foundations of human connection and collaboration.
It really highlights how even the smallest scientific discoveries can have these ripple effects that touch every aspect of our lives.
So for you listening out there, as you go about your day, think about how you're cooperating with others. Even in like the simplest interactions.
That's right.
Remember that your brain is wired to connect, to synchronize, to work as part of a team.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a powerful ability, and the more we understand it, the more we can harness it to achieve amazing things.
Absolutely.
Both individually and collectively.
I agree.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for being curious and subscribing, following, liking, rating, and reviewing our podcast episodes. Your support really helps build a vibrant Heliox community. Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.